Shot down behind enemy lines. So he stole a Nazi fighter and escaped. December 16, 1944. 5:47 a.m. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Sergeant Jack Morrison's eyes snap open to a sound that doesn't belong. Not the wind through frozen pines. Not the shuffle of sleeping men in foxholes. Something else. Something mechanical. A low rumble growing louder. He's on his feet before his brain fully processes what he's hearing. Tank engines. Dozens of them. Coming from the east. From German territory. His hand finds the shoulder of Corporal Danny Chen, shaking him awake. Get up. Get everyone up. Now. Chen doesn't argue. He's learned to trust Morrison's instincts over 6 months of combat across France. The corporal crawls from foxhole to foxhole, whispering urgent commands. Around them, the 28th Infantry Division sleeps, 2,000 men stretched across 5 miles of forest, believing they're in a quiet sector. Believing the Germans are finished. Believing the war will be over by Christmas. They're about to discover how wrong they are. The Wall of Fire. Welcome to Epic War Chronicles. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense World War II stories that bring history's most dramatic moments to life. The First Shot. Welcome to Epic War Chronicles. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense World War II stories that bring history's most dramatic moments to life. The First Shot. The first shells hit at 5:50 a.m. The forest erupts. Trees explode into splinters. The ground heaves upward in geysers of frozen earth and snow. Morrison is thrown against a tree trunk, his helmet flying off, his ears ringing with a high-pitched whine that drowns out everything else. Through the smoke and chaos, he sees Private Tommy Bradford, 19 years old, farm kid from Iowa, stumble out of his foxhole, eyes wide with confusion. A second shell lands 10 feet away. Bradford ceases to exist. Just gone. Replaced by a red mist and scattered equipment. Morrison's stomach lurches, but there's no time for grief. The barrage intensifies. Artillery shells scream down in waves, churning the American positions into a hellscape of fire and shrapnel. This isn't harassment fire. This isn't a raid. This is the prelude to something massive. Chen appears beside him, bleeding from a cut above his left eye. Sergeant, what the hell is this? Morrison doesn't answer because he doesn't know. The Germans haven't launched an offensive like this since 1940. They're not supposed to have the resources. Intelligence said the Wehrmacht was on its last legs, conserving fuel, retreating toward the Rhine. Intelligence was catastrophically wrong. Ghosts in the snow. The barrage lifts after 30 minutes. Morrison's ears are still ringing, but he can hear something worse than artillery. Infantry. German voices shouting commands through the smoke. The crack of rifle fire. The brutal chatter of MG-42 machine guns. He pulls himself to the edge of his foxhole and looks east. What he sees makes his blood freeze. Through the morning mist and drifting smoke, figures emerge. Hundreds of them. German infantry in winter camouflage, moving through the trees in disciplined formations. Behind them, the unmistakable silhouettes of tanks. Not the Panzer IVs they've been facing. These are bigger. Tiger IIs. King Tigers. 70 tons of armor and firepower. The most powerful tank in the world. Morrison counts 6 of them in the first wave. His unit has bazookas that might scratch the paint. Around him, the surviving Americans are fighting back. Rifles crack. A bar gunner opens up from a position 50 yards north, cutting down 3 German soldiers before an MG-42 finds him. The gunner's body jerks once and goes still. The German advance doesn't slow. They're not charging recklessly. They're moving like professionals, using cover, suppressing American positions with overwhelming firepower, advancing in coordinated bounds. These aren't the desperate conscripts and old men the Americans have been capturing since Normandy. These are SS troops. Fresh divisions held in reserve for exactly this moment. The retreat that wasn't. Lieutenant Hayes appears, running low between foxholes. He's 23, West Point graduate, 3 months in combat. His face is pale, his hands shaking. Sergeant Morrison, we're pulling back. Battalion orders. Fall back to the secondary positions. Morrison grabs his rifle. Where's the secondary position, sir? Hayes blinks. 2 miles west. There's supposed to be. A Tiger II round hits the tree line behind them. The explosion lifts Hayes off his feet and slams him into a foxhole. Morrison pulls him out. The lieutenant is alive but unconscious, blood running from his nose and ears. Concussion. Maybe worse. Chen appears with 4 other survivors. Private Wilson, bar gunner. Corporal Jennings, medic. Private First Class Davis and Private Kowalski, rifleman. 6 men. Morrison's entire squad numbered 14 this morning. We moving, Sarge? Wilson asks. Morrison looks west, toward the supposed secondary positions. Then east, toward the German advance. Standard procedure says retreat. Save what you can. Live to fight another day. But Morrison spent 2 years in North Africa before France. He's seen retreats. He knows what happens when units break contact under pressure. Chaos. Men get separated. Officers lose control. Small groups get picked off by pursuing enemy forces. And he's seen something else in the German advance. The King Tigers are moving slowly, cautiously, leading with infantry screens. They're not racing forward. They're being methodical. Which means they're worried about something. Ambush. Anti-tank positions. Minefields. The Germans are advancing blind, same as the Americans were caught blind. An idea forms. Insane. Probably suicidal. But maybe, just maybe, possible. The counterattack nobody ordered. We're not retreating, Morrison says. Wilson stares at him. Sergeant, the lieutenant said, the lieutenant's unconscious. I'm in command. Morrison points to a ridge 200 yards north, perpendicular to the German advance. We move to that position. Set up an ambush on their flank. Hit them when they're focused on our main line. Chen understands immediately. They won't expect fire from that direction. They think we're broken. Exactly. Jennings, the medic, shakes his head. 6 guys against an SS division. That's suicide. So is running through open forest with King Tigers hunting us, Morrison says. At least this way we do some damage. He looks at each man in turn. I'm not ordering this. Anyone wants to head west, go now. No shame in it. Nobody moves. Davis, barely 18, grins nervously. Always wanted to be in one of those crazy stories, Sarge. You're about to be, Morrison says. They move fast, staying low, using the smoke and chaos as cover. The German advance is focused on the American front line, now collapsing under overwhelming pressure. Nobody's watching the northern flank. The ridge Morrison spotted is actually an old logging road, elevated 10 feet above the forest floor. Perfect firing position. They reach it in 4 minutes. Wilson sets up his bar on a fallen log. Kowalski and Davis take positions with their M1 Garens. Chen has a bazooka with 2 rockets. Morrison keeps his Thompson submachine gun ready. Jennings stays back, ready to patch whoever gets hit. Through the trees, Morrison watches the German column advance. Infantry in front, tanks behind, supply trucks following. Standard formation. Professional. Deadly. He waits until the first King Tiger is exactly parallel to their position, 70 yards away. Close enough to hit. Too close to miss. On my mark, he whispers. Chen loads the bazooka. Aims at the tank's thinner side armor. The other men sight in on the infantry. Morrison counts down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The shot that changed everything. Chen fires. The bazooka rocket screams across the gap and slams into the King Tiger's right track. The explosion is massive, severing the track and immobilizing 70 tons of steel. The tank lurches to a halt, engine roaring, turret traversing, searching for the threat. Wilson opens up with the bar. 30 caliber rounds rip into the German infantry, dropping 5 soldiers in the first burst. Davis and Kowalski fire as fast as they can work their rifle bolts, every shot hitting a target at this range. Morrison squeezes the Thompson's trigger, walking fire through a squad of Germans trying to form a defensive line. Chaos erupts in the German column. The King Tiger's turret swings toward them, its massive 88mm gun elevating. Morrison sees the muzzle and knows they have seconds before that gun fires and erases their position from existence. Move! Move now, he screams. They abandon their positions and sprint along the ridge just as the 88mm fires. The shell hits exactly where they'd been standing, obliterating the fallen log, hurling debris 100 feet into the air. But they're already 50 yards away, sliding down the reverse slope of the ridge, out of sight. Behind them, the German advance has stalled. The immobilized King Tiger is blocking the road. Infantry is scattering, taking cover, firing blindly into the forest. Officers are shouting contradictory orders. Morrison's 6-man team has thrown an entire German column into confusion. He doesn't know it yet, but in the next 3 days, his decision to attack instead of retreat will save the lives of 200 American soldiers and delay the German advance long enough for reinforcements to arrive. But right now, all he knows is they're still alive, the Germans are angry, and somewhere in this frozen forest, there are 5 more King Tigers hunting for the Americans who just bloodied their nose. Chen gasps for breath beside him. What now, Sarge? Morrison checks his ammunition. 3 magazines left for the Thompson. Maybe 90 rounds. Now we do it again, he says. Behind them, German voices shout orders. Engines rev. The hunt has begun. December 16, 1944. 6:34 a.m. The Ardennes Forest. Sergeant Jack Morrison crouches behind a massive oak tree, listening. The German voices are closer now. Organized. Methodical. They're not charging blindly into the forest. They're sweeping in a coordinated search pattern, and Morrison's team is exactly what they're searching for. 50 yards to his left, Corporal Chen signals with 2 fingers. Enemy scouts. Moving parallel to their position. Morrison signals back. Hold fire. Wait. The math is brutal. 6 Americans against what sounds like at least a full German company, maybe more. Conservatively, that's 120 enemy soldiers, supported by armor, with unlimited ammunition and reinforcements minutes away. Morrison's team has what they're carrying. 18 rifle magazines between Davis and Kowalski. 4 magazines left for Wilson's bar. Chen's bazooka is useless now, they fired both rockets at the King Tiger. Morrison himself has 3 Thompson magazines. Total ammunition, maybe 300 rounds. Against 120 men, that's 2.5 bullets per enemy soldier. Miss twice and you're fighting hand to hand. The German scouts pass within 30 feet. Morrison can see their faces. Young. Maybe 20 years old. They're scared too. Good. Scared soldiers make mistakes. The lieutenant's secret. Behind Morrison, Lieutenant Hayes groans. He's regaining consciousness, which is both good and bad. Good because they need every able body. Bad because Hayes is about to realize what Morrison has done. The lieutenant's eyes flutter open. He tries to sit up, winces, falls back. What, where? Easy, sir, Jennings whispers, holding Hayes down. You took a hit from a tank round. Concussion. Maybe cracked ribs. Hayes's eyes focus. He looks around at the men. At the forest. At the sound of German soldiers searching nearby. Understanding dawns. Sergeant Morrison. Why aren't we at the secondary position? Morrison doesn't turn around. He's still watching the German scouts. We engaged the enemy, sir. Disabled a King Tiger. Disrupted their advance. Hayes tries to sit up again. This time he makes it, though his face goes white with pain. You engaged. I ordered a retreat. You were unconscious, sir. I made a tactical decision. You made a. Hayes stops. Takes a breath. His West Point training is fighting with the reality of combat. By regulation, Morrison disobeyed a direct order. By results, Morrison's action probably saved dozens of lives. Hayes looks at Morrison's back. At the set of his shoulders. At the way the other men are watching their sergeant, not their lieutenant. Hayes realizes something important. These men will follow Morrison into hell. They won't follow a by-the-book lieutenant who's been in combat for 3 months. The lieutenant makes a decision. Report, Sergeant. What's our situation? Morrison finally turns. He sees the calculation in Hayes's eyes. The lieutenant is letting it go. For now. We're surrounded, sir. Germans are sweeping the forest in force. They're looking for whoever hit their tank. We're low on ammunition. No radio. No support. And it's 18 miles to friendly lines. Hayes absorbs this. Options? We can try to break west, but they'll be expecting that. Every American in this sector is running west. The Germans will have the routes covered. Or we go north. Circle behind their advance. Hit their supply lines. Hayes stares at Morrison like he's insane. You want to go deeper into enemy territory? They're not expecting it, sir. And supply convoys won't be as heavily guarded as the front line. We cause enough damage, we slow their whole advance. It's a crazy idea. It's also brilliant. Hayes realizes Morrison has been thinking 3 moves ahead while Hayes was unconscious. All right, Sergeant. We go north. But this is my command. My decision. Understood? Morrison nods. Understood, sir. Both men know it's a fiction. But it's a fiction that preserves the chain of command while letting Morrison keep doing what he does best. Stay alive and kill Germans. The first sacrifice. They move north at 7:15 a.m., staying low, using the terrain. The forest here is dense, fir trees packed tight, underbrush thick with snow. Good concealment. Bad visibility. Davis is on point, moving carefully, rifle ready. Wilson follows with the bar. Then Morrison and Hayes. Chen and Kowalski covering their rear. Jennings in the middle, protecting their only medic. They've covered maybe 400 yards when Davis freezes. His fist comes up. Stop. Morrison crawls forward. Davis points ahead without speaking. Through the trees, Morrison sees them. A German machine gun position. MG-42 set up with interlocking fields of fire. 6 soldiers manning it. They're oriented south, watching for Americans retreating from the front line. They're not watching north. Morrison signals Chen forward. Whispers in his ear. Can you get behind them? Chen studies the position. Nods. Give me 3 minutes. Chen disappears into the forest like smoke. He's Chinese-American, grew up in San Francisco, joined the army to prove his loyalty after Pearl Harbor. The irony isn't lost on anyone, proving you're American by killing for America. But Chen is the best scout Morrison has ever worked with. Silent. Patient. Deadly. Morrison watches the seconds tick by on his watch. 2 minutes. 2.5. At exactly 3 minutes, Chen appears behind the German position like a ghost. His knife flashes once. Twice. The rear guard drops without a sound. Chen picks up the dead soldier's rifle and fires a single shot into the back of the MG-42 gunner's head. The other Germans spin around, reaching for weapons. Too slow. Morrison's team opens fire from the front. Wilson's bar tears through them. Davis and Kowalski drop 2 more with precise rifle shots. In 5 seconds, it's over. 6 Germans dead. The MG-42 captured intact. 4 belts of ammunition. 1,000 rounds of 7.92 mm, jackpot, Wilson breathes. They can't carry the gun, it weighs 25 pounds and they're moving fast, but Chen strips it down, disables the firing mechanism, and throws the bolt into the underbrush. 1 less weapon killing Americans. They're gathering ammunition when Morrison hears it. A voice. German. Weak. Wounded. One of the Germans isn't dead. Private Kowalski moves toward the sound, rifle ready. Morrison follows. They find him behind a tree. Can't be more than 18. Took a round through the stomach. Gut shot. Fatal. Just a matter of time. The boy looks up at them with terrified eyes. Says something in German. Morrison doesn't speak the language, but he understands the tone. Please. Help me. Don't let me die. Jennings appears. Looks at the wound. Shakes his head. Nothing anyone can do. Even in a field hospital, gut shots are a coin flip. Out here, in the forest, with no morphine to spare. The boy is already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. The German soldier reaches out. Grabs Morrison's hand. Says something else. Morrison looks at Jennings. What's he saying? I think he's asking for his mother. They're all silent. This isn't the faceless enemy. This is a kid, dying in agony, crying for his mother in a frozen forest 500 miles from home. Kowalski raises his rifle. Want me to? No, Morrison says. He kneels beside the German. Holds the boy's hand. Doesn't let go. It takes 4 minutes. The longest 4 minutes of Morrison's life. When it's over, he closes the boy's eyes and stands. Let's move. Nobody speaks for the next half mile. The supply convoy. 9:23 a.m. Morrison's team reaches a dirt road running east-west through the forest. Fresh tire tracks in the snow. Heavy vehicles. Lots of them. Supply route, Hayes says. Morrison nods. This is what they're looking for. The German offensive is massive, but it's also dependent on a fragile supply chain. Fuel. Ammunition. Food. Everything has to come up these roads from Germany. Cut the roads, and the advance stalls. They set up an ambush point where the road curves around a steep hillside. Perfect kill zone. Vehicles will have to slow down for the turn. Limited visibility around the bend. No room to maneuver. They wait 20 minutes. Then they hear engines. Morrison risks a look around the bend. 3 trucks. Opel Blitz models. Standard German supply vehicles. Canvas covers over the cargo beds. No escort vehicles visible. Light security. The Germans are confident. They own this territory. That's about to change. Morrison lets the first truck enter the kill zone. Then the second. When the third truck is committed, he signals. Wilson opens fire with the bar, stitching rounds across the lead truck's engine block. The vehicle lurches to a stop, steam pouring from the radiator. Davis and Kowalski target the rear truck, shooting out both front tires. It slews sideways, blocking the road. The middle truck is trapped. German soldiers pile out of the trucks, maybe 15 of them, shouting orders, taking cover, returning fire. But they're in the open, exposed. Morrison's team has elevation and concealment. It's a slaughter. Wilson's bar cuts down 4 soldiers in the first burst. Rifle fire from Davis and Kowalski drops 3 more. Morrison uses the Thompson in controlled bursts, conserving ammunition, making every round count. In 30 seconds, it's over. 15 Germans dead or dying. 0 American casualties. Check the trucks, Morrison orders. What they find changes everything. The first truck, ammunition. Crates of 7.92 mm for rifles and machine guns. Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons. Stick grenades. The second truck, fuel drums. Enough gasoline to run a company of vehicles for a week. The third truck, food. Rations. Medical supplies. And something else. Maps. Operational maps showing the entire German offensive. Routes. Objectives. Unit positions. Hayes spreads one map on the hood of the truck. His hands are shaking, but not from fear. From excitement. Morrison. Look at this. The map shows the German plan in terrifying detail. 3 entire panzer armies. 29 divisions. 410,000 men. 1,400 tanks and assault guns. All concentrated on a 50-mile front in the Ardennes. The objective, Antwerp. Cut the Allied armies in half. Capture the primary supply port. End the war in the West. We need to get this to command, Hayes says. They need to know what's coming. Morrison studies the map. The nearest American position with working radio communications is 12 miles west. Through German-controlled territory. With enemy forces everywhere. We'll never make it carrying all this intelligence, Morrison says. The maps are too bulky. We get caught, we lose everything. Hayes understands. We memorize what we can. Burn the rest. They spend 10 minutes photographing the maps in their minds. Main routes. Unit designations. Timetables. Then Hayes pours gasoline over the maps and lights them. The intelligence burns. But the knowledge is locked in their heads now. If they can get back to Allied lines, this information could save thousands of lives. If. Chen is checking the bodies when he calls out. Sergeant. You need to see this. Morrison walks over. Chen is standing over a German officer. Captain's rank. SS insignia. Dead from a rifle round through the chest. But that's not what Chen is pointing at. The German captain is holding a photograph. Morrison picks it up. It shows a woman and 2 young children. A family. The dead captain's family, presumably. On the back, written in German, Komm bald nach Hause, Papa. Come home soon, Daddy. Morrison stares at the photograph for a long moment. Then he puts it back in the dead man's hand. Sergeant? Chen asks. Leave it, Morrison says. Let him keep it. They rig the fuel truck with grenades on a tripwire and pull back into the forest. 5 minutes later, they hear the explosion. A massive fireball rises above the trees. Black smoke boils into the sky. Every German unit for 5 miles will see it. We'll know the supply convoy was hit. We'll come looking. We need to disappear, Hayes says. Morrison is already moving. This way. Fast. They run. The betrayal. 11:47 a.m. They've put 3 miles between themselves and the burning convoy when Davis stops suddenly. Sergeant. I hear something. They all freeze. Listen. Voices. English. American accents. Through the trees ahead, Morrison sees movement. Uniforms. American uniforms. A group of soldiers, maybe 8 or 10, moving through the forest. Morrison's first instinct is relief. Friendly forces. Safety in numbers. But something makes him hesitate. Something's wrong. Hold position, he whispers. He watches the group more carefully. The uniforms are right. American infantry, standard issue. But the way they're moving is wrong. Too relaxed. No scouts out front. No rear guard. They're walking through German-controlled territory like they own it. One of them laughs. Actually laughs. Morrison has been in combat long enough to know, real American soldiers moving through enemy territory don't laugh. Chin sees it too. Whispers, something's off, Sarge. Morrison signals everyone to stay hidden. He watches as the group stops in a clearing 50 yards ahead. One of them pulls out a map. American map. Starts pointing, giving directions. The accent is perfect. Midwest. Could be Iowa or Nebraska. But the body language is wrong. Germans. Operation Greif. Morrison has heard rumors. German commandos wearing American uniforms, speaking perfect English, spreading confusion behind Allied lines. He didn't believe it. Thought it was propaganda. He was wrong. Hayes sees them too. Realizes the same thing Morrison did. If we'd walked up to them. He doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. If they'd walked up to those fake Americans, Morrison's team would be dead or captured right now. And the intelligence they're carrying, the knowledge of the German offensive, would die with them. Morrison makes a decision. We take them. Hayes looks at him. Sergeant, they're SS commandos. Trained killers. So are we, sir. And we have surprise. Morrison lays out the plan in whispers. They have maybe 30 seconds before the German commando team moves on. Chen circles left. Wilson and Kowalski circle right. Davis stays with Morrison and Hayes. 3-point attack. Converge simultaneously. No warning. No mercy. At Morrison's signal, they move. The German commandos don't see them coming until it's too late. Morrison drops 2 with the Thompson before they can draw weapons. Chen kills another with a knife from behind. Wilson's bar cuts down 3 more in a sustained burst. The last 2 try to run. Davis and Kowalski shoot them in the back. 8 German commandos. Dead in 15 seconds. Morrison checks the bodies. Perfect American uniforms. Dog tags. Even American cigarettes in their pockets. The attention to detail is terrifying. How many of these teams are out there? Hayes asks. Morrison doesn't answer because he doesn't know. Could be dozens. Could be hundreds. The implications are staggering. American units won't know who to trust. Friendly fire incidents will skyrocket. The Germans are fighting a psychological war alongside the shooting war. Hayes is checking one of the bodies when he finds it. A radio. Small. German make. Still operational. Morrison. They were reporting back to their command. Giving positions of American units. Morrison understands immediately. These commandos weren't just spreading confusion. They were forward observers. Calling in artillery strikes. Directing German attacks. And if they had a radio? We can use this, Morrison says. Hayes stares at him. Use it how? Call in false reports. Send German units to the wrong positions. Buy time for our forces to regroup. It's brilliant. It's also incredibly dangerous. If the Germans figure out the radio is compromised, they'll change all their frequencies and Morrison's team loses their advantage. But if it works, Hayes makes the decision. Do it. But carefully. 1 or 2 false reports maximum. Then we ditch the radio and keep moving. Morrison picks up the radio. Turns it on. A voice crackles through in German. Demanding a status report from the commando team. Morrison looks at Chen. You speak any German? Not enough for this. They're about to turn the radio off when Wilson speaks up. I do. Everyone turns. Wilson, the bar gunner from Wisconsin, shrugs. My grandparents emigrated from Bavaria. German was my first language. Morrison hands him the radio. Tell them the American positions are collapsing. Tell them to advance west toward grid. He checks the captured map, gives coordinates that will send a German unit into a mined area the Americans set up last week. Wilson translates into flawless German. Transmits. Waits. The German voice responds. Confirms. Clicks off. Wilson sets down the radio. His hands are shaking. They believed it. Morrison grabs the radio and smashes it against a tree. The device shatters into pieces. Can't risk using it again. Can't risk the Germans tracking the signal. They move out, leaving the bodies of the German commandos where they fell. Let the real Germans find them. Let them wonder what happened. Let them doubt their own operation. As they disappear into the forest, Morrison hears explosions in the distance. German artillery. Firing at coordinates Wilson just provided. Firing at their own forward positions. The psychological warfare goes both ways. The impossible choice. 2:34 p.m. 8 miles from friendly lines. Morrison's team is exhausted. They've been moving for 9 hours straight. No food except a few captured German rations. No rest. Constant threat of discovery. Hayes is struggling. The concussion is worse than he admitted. He's having trouble focusing, stumbling over roots. Twice he started to say something and lost his train of thought mid-sentence. They need to stop. They need to rest. But stopping means dying. Morrison is about to call for a brief halt when he hears it. Screaming. Human screaming. American voices. Coming from a position 200 yards east. Morrison signals halt. Moves carefully toward the sound. What he finds freezes his blood. A German field interrogation. 3 American POWs. Tied to trees. An SS officer asking questions. When he doesn't get answers, he nods to a subordinate. The subordinate uses a knife. The screaming gets worse. Morrison counts the Germans. 12 soldiers. 1 officer. Heavy odds. But not impossible. Hayes appears beside him. Sees what Morrison sees. We can't, Hayes whispers. We have to get the intelligence back. That's the priority. We can't risk the mission for 3 men. Tactically, Hayes is right. Strategically, he's correct. Saving 3 POWs won't change the outcome of the battle. But getting the German operational plans to Allied command could save thousands. The math is simple. 3 lives versus thousands. But Morrison is looking at one of the American POWs. The man's face is bloody, but Morrison recognizes him. Sergeant Robert Chen. Danny Chen's older brother. Danny Chen, who is currently crouched next to Morrison, watching his brother being tortured to death. Morrison sees Danny's face. Sees the calculation happening behind his eyes. Danny is going to save his brother. With or without Morrison's permission. If Danny goes alone, he dies. If Morrison's whole team goes, they might all die, and the intelligence dies with them. But if they do nothing, Morrison makes the decision. Wilson. Give me the bar. Rest of you, stay here with the lieutenant. I'm going in. Hayes grabs his arm. Morrison, that's suicide. One man. Fast hit. I can do it. Your mission is to, my mission is what I say it is, sir. Morrison looks Hayes in the eyes. And right now, my mission is to save those men. You don't like it, you can court-martial me when we get back. If we get back. Hayes starts to argue, but Danny Chen interrupts. I'm going with him. Morrison expects Hayes to pull rank. Order them to stand down. Instead, the lieutenant surprises him. Hayes unbuckles his service pistol. Hands it to Morrison. Make it fast. Make it count. We'll cover your exit. Morrison takes the pistol. Looks at his team. At these men who followed him through hell for the last 9 hours. If we're not back in 10 minutes, you run. Get that intelligence home. That's an order. He doesn't wait for acknowledgement. He and Danny Chen move. December 16, 1944. 2:41 p.m. Sergeant Jack Morrison and Corporal Danny Chen move through the frozen forest like predators. Every step calculated. Every breath controlled. Ahead, the screaming has stopped. That's worse than the screaming. It means the SS interrogator is taking a break. Or it means one of the POWs is dead. Morrison reaches the edge of the clearing and drops prone. Chen beside him. 60 yards ahead, 3 American soldiers are tied to trees. 2 are conscious. Bleeding. Broken. The third hangs limp in his bonds. Sergeant Robert Chen. Danny's brother. Morrison can't tell if he's alive or dead. The SS officer is smoking a cigarette. Relaxed. He's done this before. 12 German soldiers stand in a loose perimeter around the prisoners. They're not expecting trouble. They're deep in German-controlled territory. As far as they know, every American in the sector is either dead, captured, or running west. Morrison counts ammunition. Wilson's bar in his hands. 3 full magazines. 90 rounds. His Thompson on his back. 2 magazines left. 60 rounds. Hayes's pistol in his belt. 7 rounds. Danny has his M1 Garand. 1 clip. 8 rounds. Total, 165 bullets. 13 targets. 12 rounds per target with 9 bullets to spare. The math works if every shot counts. If they don't miss. If the Germans don't take cover. If Morrison is fast enough. 7 seconds of violence. Morrison taps Danny's shoulder. Points to the left side of the perimeter. 4 guards. Danny nods. Understands. He'll take those 4. Morrison will take the other 8 plus the officer. They have one advantage. The element of surprise lasts exactly as long as the first shot. After that, it's chaos and whoever processes information faster wins. Morrison settles the bar against his shoulder. Breathes out slowly. Picks his first target. A German soldier standing directly between Morrison and Robert Chen. In his peripheral vision, he tracks 3 more targets. Plots the sequence. First shot drops the soldier in front. Traverse left, second and third targets. Traverse right, 4th through 8th. Reload. Finish anyone still moving. 7 seconds. That's how long he has before the Germans organize a response. Morrison's finger takes up slack on the trigger. He doesn't count down. Doesn't give a signal. He just fires. The bar roars. The first German drops with a round through the chest. Morrison shifts. Second target. Fire. The soldier's head snaps back. Third target. Fire. Down. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. The bar is brutal at close range. Every round finds flesh. Germans are spinning, falling, dying before they understand what's happening. Danny's Garand cracks beside him. Precise. Methodical. Ping. 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 Each shot a kill. The SS officer drops his cigarette. Reaches for his Luger. Morrison's 9th round catches him in the throat. He goes down gurgling. 11 seconds. 13 Germans dead. 0 return fire. Morrison is already running toward the prisoners. Danny covers him, scanning for threats. Morrison reaches Robert chin first. Cuts the ropes with his knife. Robert collapses. Morrison catches him. Bobby. Stay with me. Robert's eyes flutter. He's alive. Barely. Knife wounds across his chest and arms. Nothing immediately fatal, but he's lost blood. Shock is setting in. The other 2 POWs are in worse shape. Private Lewis. Face beaten to pulp. Both hands broken. He's crying. Not from pain. From relief. The third man, Corporal Martinez. Unconscious. Possible skull fracture. Morrison makes rapid calculations. 3 wounded men. 8 miles to friendly lines. German forces everywhere. Impossible to carry 3 men and fight their way out. Unless. The German uniforms. Danny is already thinking the same thing Morrison is thinking. They look at the dead Germans. At their uniforms. No, Robert Chin gasps. Don't, war crime. He's right. The Geneva Convention is explicit. Combatants wearing enemy uniforms can be executed as spies. No trial. No prisoner of war protections. Summary execution. But the Germans just did exactly that. The commando teams Morrison killed an hour ago were wearing American uniforms. If the rules are already broken, Morrison makes the decision. Strip them. We need uniforms for all 6 of us. They work fast. German winter uniforms. Wool overcoats. Field caps. Boots. Within 4 minutes, Morrison's team looks like a German patrol with 3 wounded prisoners. It's not perfect. Up close, the deception won't hold. But from a distance, in the chaos of battle, it might buy them the seconds they need. They're finishing when the rest of Morrison's team arrives. Lieutenant Hayes sees what they've done. Sees the German uniforms. Jesus Christ, Morrison. Do you understand what you've just saved 3 lives and given us a chance to get home, sir? Yes, I understand. Hayes looks like he wants to argue. But he's seen too much today. The rule book doesn't work in the Ardennes forest. Not anymore. Fine. But if we're captured in these uniforms, we won't be captured, sir. Morrison helps Robert Chen into a German overcoat. Whispers to Danny, your brother's tough. He'll make it. Danny nods, but Morrison sees the doubt in his eyes. Robert is fading fast. The march through enemy lines. 3:18 p.m. Morrison's team moves south, dressed as German soldiers escorting American prisoners. It's the most audacious gambit Morrison has attempted. If it works, they'll walk right through German positions. If it fails, they die. They've covered maybe 600 yards when they encounter their first German patrol. 6 soldiers. Corporal leading. The corporal raises his hand. Calls out in German. Morrison freezes. He doesn't speak German. Wilson does, but Wilson is pretending to be a prisoner. If Wilson responds in German, the deception collapses. The German corporal approaches. Suspicious. He's looking at Morrison's uniform. At the American prisoners. He says something else in German. Louder. Morrison does the only thing he can think of. He points at the prisoners. Points south toward the German rear. Makes a shooting gesture. The universal language of war. We're taking these prisoners for interrogation. The German corporal squints. Looks at Hayes, who's playing a prisoner. Hayes has blood running down his face from his earlier concussion. Looks convincingly beaten. The corporal nods slowly. Says something that sounds like approval. Waves them through. Morrison's heart is hammering so hard he's sure the Germans can hear it. But he keeps walking. Steady pace. Not too fast. Not too slow. Just another patrol doing their job. They clear the German checkpoint and keep moving. That was too close, Hayes mutters. It's going to get closer, sir. Morrison is right. Over the next 2 hours, they encounter 4 more German patrols. Each time, Morrison uses the same tactic. Point at prisoners. Point toward rear. Universal soldier language. Twice it works perfectly. Once, a German lieutenant gets suspicious and starts asking detailed questions. Wilson, still pretending to be a prisoner, whispers translations to Morrison. Morrison responds with hand gestures and grunts. The lieutenant finally loses patience and waves them through. The 4th encounter is different. The SS Major. 5:47 p.m. twilight. The forest is getting dark. Morrison's team is 2 miles from what Morrison estimates are American positions. So close. A German staff car appears on the road ahead. Black Mercedes. SS flags on the fenders. The car stops. An SS major steps out. Tall. Gray hair. Iron cross at his throat. This is a man who's seen 20 years of warfare. He looks at Morrison's group with the eyes of someone who doesn't miss details. He walks directly to Morrison. Says something in rapid German. Morrison doesn't understand a word. He tries the same routine. Points at prisoners. Points south. The SS major's eyes narrow. He responds in German. Longer sentence. More complex. He's testing Morrison. Morrison feels sweat running down his back despite the freezing temperature. The major steps closer. Looks directly into Morrison's eyes. Morrison knows this is it. The deception is about to collapse. The major is going to call for his guards. Morrison's hand drifts toward his concealed Thompson. If shooting starts here, they're all dead, but he'll take this SS bastard with him. The major says something else. Quieter. Morrison still doesn't understand. And then the major does something unexpected. He smiles. Claps Morrison on the shoulder. Walks back to his staff car. The car drives away. Morrison stands frozen for 10 seconds. What just happened? Hayes asks. Wilson, still playing prisoner, whispers, he said the Americans are cowards. Said good work capturing them. Said the war will be over by Christmas. Morrison exhales slowly. Move. Now. Before he comes back. They walk faster. The sound of freedom. 6:23 p.m. Full darkness now. Through the trees ahead, Morrison hears something beautiful. American voices. Machine gun positions being readied. The sound of English being spoken. They've reached the American lines. But this is the most dangerous moment. American sentries will see German uniforms approaching in the dark. They'll shoot first and ask questions later. Standard procedure. Morrison stops the team 100 yards from the American positions. Start stripping off the German overcoat. Everyone, lose the German gear. Now. They shed the enemy uniforms. Underneath, they're still wearing American fatigues. Dirty. Bloody. But recognizably American. Morrison steps forward. Raises his hands. Shouts toward the American lines. Friendly forces. Coming in. Don't shoot. A voice responds. Southern accent. Alabama or Mississippi. Advance and be recognized. Slow. Morrison walks forward. Hands raised. His team behind him. Wounded men supported by the others. From the darkness, an American sergeant emerges. M1 rifle pointed at Morrison's chest. Behind him, a dozen soldiers in fighting positions. All of them aiming at Morrison. Identify yourself. Sergeant Jack Morrison. 28th Infantry Division. These men are my squad. We've been behind enemy lines since this morning. The American sergeant studies them. Sees the blood. The exhaustion. The wounded men. Password. Morrison's blood runs cold. He doesn't know the password. He's been behind enemy lines all day. Passwords change daily. He has no idea what today's challenge and response are. I don't know the password, Morrison admits. We've been cut off since the attack started. The American sergeant's finger tightens on the trigger. That's what a German infiltrator would say. You could be Operation Greif. We've had reports. I'm not, prove it. Morrison's mind races. How do you prove you're American to Americans who've been trained to distrust everything? Then he remembers. DiMaggio, Morrison says. Joe DiMaggio. New York Yankees. Married Rita Hayworth in 1942. Actually, wait, no. They divorced. He's single again. He keeps talking. Yankees won the World Series in '41. Beat the Dodgers. Bill Dickey was catching. Red Ruffing pitched Game 1. Charlie Keller hit 2 home runs. The American sergeant lowers his rifle slightly. What position does DiMaggio play? Center field. Best damn center fielder in baseball. A German infiltrator might know DiMaggio exists. Might even know he plays for the Yankees. But the details? The World Series statistics? The divorce? That's information only an American would know. The sergeant finally lowers his rifle completely. Welcome back, Sergeant. You look like hell. Morrison nearly collapses from relief. We need medical attention. 2 men critical. 1 serious. And I need to see your commanding officer immediately. We have intelligence on the German offensive. The briefing. 7:45 p.m. Regimental Headquarters. A hastily established command post in a farmhouse 3 miles behind the front lines. Morrison stands in front of Colonel Thomas Becker, regimental commander. Lieutenant Hayes is beside him. The rest of Morrison's team is at the aid station getting patched up. Morrison has been talking for 20 minutes straight. Describing everything he saw. The German offensive. The King Tigers. The supply convoy. The maps showing the full scope of the attack. The commando teams in American uniforms. Colonel Becker listens without interrupting. When Morrison finishes, the colonel is silent for a long moment. You're telling me there are 3 German panzer armies bearing down on us? 400,000 men. 1,400 tanks. Yes, sir. And their objective is Antwerp? Yes, sir. Based on maps you saw in a supply convoy that you subsequently destroyed? Yes, sir. Becker looks at Hayes. Lieutenant, do you corroborate this report? Hayes straightens despite his injuries. Every word, sir. Sergeant Morrison's account is accurate. Becker stands. Walks to a map on the wall. Studies it. If you're right, if this offensive is as large as you're describing, this is the biggest German attack since 1940. I believe it is, sir. And if you're wrong, if this is disinformation, I'm about to pull units out of position based on faulty intelligence. Morrison meets the colonel's eyes. Sir, I watched a King Tiger lead an SS division through our positions this morning. I've been behind their lines all day. This isn't disinformation. This is real. And it's bigger than anything we've prepared for. Becker makes his decision. Get this information to SHAEF immediately. Eisenhower needs to know what's coming. He turns back to Morrison. Sergeant, you and your men have done exceptional work today. You're dismissed. Get some food and rest. Morrison salutes. Turns to leave. Becker's voice stops him. Morrison. One more thing. The German uniforms you wore. That's a court-martial offense. Morrison turns back. Yes, sir. I'm aware. Did it save lives? Yes, sir. It did. Becker nods slowly. Then as far as I'm concerned, it never happened. Dismissed. Morrison exits the farmhouse. Hayes follows. Outside, snow is falling again. The temperature is dropping. Hayes speaks quietly. You know what today was, Morrison? Thursday, sir. No. Today was the first day of the Battle of the Bulge. Historians are going to write about this battle for the next 100 years. And nobody will ever know what you did. Morrison looks at the falling snow. Thinks about the German boy dying in the forest. About the SS captain with a photo of his family. About Robert Chin being tortured. About 13 German commandos in American uniforms. Good, Morrison says. I don't want them to know. The Promise. December 17, 1944. 3 a.m. The aid station. Morrison sits beside Robert Chen's bed. Danny is on the other side. Robert is awake. Barely. The doctors say he'll survive, but it was close. Infection. Blood loss. Shock. Robert looks at his younger brother. Tries to smile. You came back for me. Danny grips his hand. Of course I did. You're my brother. Robert's eyes find Morrison. Thank you, Sergeant. For letting him. For helping. Morrison shakes his head. Your brother saved himself. I just provided covering fire. It's not true, but it's what soldiers say. Give credit. Deflect glory. Robert coughs. Winces. The Germans, they asked questions. About positions. Strength. I didn't tell them anything. I know, Morrison says. You're a good soldier, Bobby. I wanted to. Robert's voice fades. He's exhausted. Morphine pulling him under. Wanted to make it home. See my family again. You will, Morrison says. War's almost over. You'll be home by spring. He has no idea if that's true. But soldiers lie to each other all the time. Small mercies in hell. Robert's eyes close. His breathing evens out. Sleep, not death. Danny exhales slowly. Will he really make it home? Morrison stands. Looks at this young corporal who killed 4 men today without hesitation to save his brother. He'll make it. You both will. I promise. It's a promise Morrison has no authority to make. No soldier can guarantee survival. But Danny needs to hear it. Needs something to hold on to. Morrison walks outside. Wilson is there, smoking a cigarette. The bar gunner looks exhausted. Couldn't sleep, Wilson says. Morrison takes the offered cigarette. Doesn't usually smoke, but today seems like an exception. Hell of a day. Yeah. They smoke in silence. Around them, the American army is digging in. Foxholes. Machine gun positions. Tank traps. Preparing for the hammer blow they know is coming. Sergeant, Wilson says quietly. Those Germans we killed. The commandos in American uniforms. The guards at the interrogation site. All of them. You think they had families? Kids waiting for them? Morrison thinks about the photograph. Come home soon, Daddy. Probably. Does that make us? Wilson doesn't finish the question. Morrison understands what he's asking. Does killing men with families make you a monster? No, Morrison says. It makes us soldiers. They chose to invade. Chose to torture prisoners. Chose to wear our uniforms and spread death. We chose to stop them. That's the difference. Wilson nods. Doesn't look convinced, but accepts it. How many more days like this, you think? Morrison looks east, toward Germany. Toward the advancing panzers. Toward the thousands of men who will die in this forest over the next month. Too many, he says. The last stand begins. December 17, 1944. 5:30 a.m. Morrison is awakened by the sound of artillery. Incoming. German 88s. The barrage is massive. Even heavier than yesterday. The Germans are preparing to attack. Morrison pulls on his gear. His body is screaming. Every muscle aches. His ankle, the one he twisted in the German ambush, is swollen. He's running on maybe 3 hours of sleep in the last 36. Doesn't matter. The war doesn't care if you're tired. Hayes appears. The lieutenant's head is bandaged, but his eyes are clear. The concussion is better. Regimental command wants us on the line. They're expecting the main attack within the hour. Morrison checks his Thompson. 3 magazines. He scrounged extra ammunition from the supply depot last night. Not much, but better than yesterday. Wilson has the bar again. Full loadout. Chen, Davis, Kowalski, Jennings. All present. All exhausted. All ready. They move to their assigned position. A foxhole line along a ridge overlooking a valley. Perfect defensive terrain. The Germans will have to attack uphill. Through open ground. American artillery is pre-registered on approach routes. Machine guns have interlocking fields of fire. If the Germans come through this valley, it's going to cost them. Morrison settles into his foxhole. Wilson to his left. Chen to his right. The artillery barrage lifts. Silence falls. Morrison knows this silence. It's the pause before the storm. The moment when soldiers on both sides are thinking the same thing. Please let me survive the next hour. Through the morning mist, Morrison hears them. Tank engines. Lots of them. The ground begins to vibrate. From the valley below, shapes emerge. Panzers. King Tigers. Panzer IVs. Panthers. Morrison counts 20 tanks in the first wave. Behind them, infantry. Hundreds of soldiers. Maybe thousands. The German offensive is hitting this position with everything they have. Lieutenant Hayes is in the foxhole command post, field telephone in hand. He's calling in artillery coordinates. Fire mission. Grid 4-7-3-8-9-2. Enemy armor in the open. Fire for effect. 30 seconds later, American artillery screams overhead. The valley erupts. Shells burst among the German formations. Tanks explode. Infantry scatter. But the Germans keep coming. Morrison watches a King Tiger take a direct hit from a 155mm shell. The shell bounces off the frontal armor. The tank doesn't even slow down. Jesus, Wilson breathes. What does it take to kill those things? Morrison doesn't answer. He's watching the German infantry. They're advancing in disciplined lines, using the tanks as cover. Professional. Experienced. This isn't the Wehrmacht of 1940. But it's not the broken, demoralized force of 1945 either. This is the German army making its last great gamble. Hayes gives the order. All positions, hold fire until they're in range. Make every shot count. The Germans advance. 800 yards. 600 yards. 400 yards. At 300 yards, Hayes shouts, "Fire!" The American line erupts. Machine guns. Rifles. Bars. Morrison's Thompson. The first wave of German infantry goes down like wheat before a scythe. But there are more behind them. Always more. A King Tiger's main gun fires. The shell hits an American foxhole 30 yards from Morrison. The explosion throws dirt and body parts into the air. Morrison keeps firing. Controlled bursts. Picking targets. A German soldier trying to set up an MG-42. Down. Another throwing a grenade. Down. An officer rallying his men. Down. The Thompson's bolt locks back. Empty. Morrison drops the magazine, slams in a fresh one, keeps firing. Beside him, Wilson's bar roars continuously. Chen is firing his M1 with mechanical precision. Ping. Reload. Ping. Reload. The Germans are taking horrific casualties, but they're not breaking. They keep coming. Morrison realizes something terrifying. The Germans aren't trying to break through. They're trying to pin the American forces in place. Which means flanking attack, someone screams. Morrison spins. From the north, more Germans. A second wave, hitting their exposed flank. Hayes is already redirecting forces, but it's chaos. The defensive position that looked so perfect 10 minutes ago is now a death trap. Germans are pouring in from two directions. Morrison makes a decision. Chen. Davis. Kowalski. With me. We stop that flanking attack or we're all dead. They abandon their foxholes and sprint toward the northern threat. Behind them, the main German assault crashes into the American line.